No man in the world. No man in the world.
The measure of any society is how it treats its women and girls. It's women and girls.
We create
the smart, powerful, creative, accomplished young women.
We can fight.
I'm here because of you. I'm here because...
Buckle up, buttercups. This is not Liz. This is Donna, and I am on the board this morning. I have a couple of treats for you. I have the always informative and frequently entertaining Bianca Goolsby, MBA, who is here always to talk to us about, to give us the tea and tell us the things that we need to know happening in the
Hey,
day.
good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And of course, the illustrious Dr. Maria Cole, coming to us live from West Palm Beach. And a little bit later, we'll have one Jason Scott from DSA. And Jason is going to talk about what's happening with DSA. Dump Duke officially, the contract officially ended that Duke Energy has with the city of St. Pete. It was a 30-year contract, came to an end just a few days ago. And now an organization is going to be doing a study to determine if to make some decisions about how St. Pete is going to go forward. Now, as you know, I have been covering that. I've been going to some DSA meetings. I really like the DSA meetings in St. Pete better than the ones in Tampa. Don't tell nobody. But because they're on fire over there, because they've got this issue that's driving them. And of course, the only elected DSA representative in the state is District 8 councilman, now vice chair of the St. Pete City Council, is Richie. Why does his name leave me every time? Give it to me, Jason.
Richie Floyd.
Richie
Yes,
Floyd.
Richie Floyd.
I've interviewed him. I've had him on the show. I've been to the meetings. I've listened to him talk. And now I see him everywhere because he was elected vice chair of the council. Big deal, right? Because, and we're going to get to this. I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm so excited. That the other day, our, what's this guy's name? Stephen Shale. He's always talking about football and politics. And he says that, that's just not coming to Tampa. It's not going to happen. They said the same thing about BLM, right? And then we turned all the way up. We're one of the largest BLMs in the South. Remember that, Gal? Remember the thousands of people in the streets of Tampa? Miami called and said, what's going on in Tampa? So this is something that was unexpected. In football, they call it an upset, and Steve would appreciate that. Also, Nikki Fried got in on the action and said, that's just not our primary crowd. Those folks aren't going to come out. But recently, because I did my homework, St. Pete, DSA, exceeded its fundraising goals. And they have 5,000 members. I think that's the number that Councilman Floyd quoted statewide. And sure, if that's not correct, Jason is going to correct me. And I have him here today to talk about a number of things. One of those things is, tell us more about the endorsement of DSA writ large of the Democratic primary hopeful for Florida U.S. Senate seat, Angie Nixon, Rep. Angie Nixon, currently Rep. Angie Nixon. And tell us more about what you foresee, movement you foresee for the party in the state of Florida. And let's talk about some of the folks, some of the amazing things that happened in Denver, the amazing things that happened in Michigan, the amazing thing that happened in Washington, D.C., and will that trend continue? I know you're probably not going to say this because you don't want to be inflammatory and all that, but is the Democratic Party on its last leg? Jason, you got it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me on here. I would just add that DSA candidates across Florida, maybe Oliver Larkin, Angie Nixon, Richie Floyd, they have great success because they can connect back to working class values that reaches everyone here in Florida when it comes to supporting workers' rights, affordability, housing, and much more. This reaches the entire voter base in the Democratic Party across Florida and the U.S. as a whole. So I see us having continued success here in Florida, despite what Shell or Nikki has made comments on. And I think that will be the case going forward, too. When it comes to operating within the Democratic Party, I know that's a debate within DSA. But for right now, we are still operating in the Democratic Party.
Aren't we all?
It will be a transformation of the party.
I am a political professional and, definitely a socialist. And did I say that on the air? Because I run field operations. I actually have my own firm. And, I'm really afraid to come out. It's like coming out as a communist in the 40s. I'm afraid to come out and say, because I remember the moderates around me, because all of the people who really do well in that space are moderate Democrats. And I started telling people that there was an exciting candidacy in New York City. There's a young man who is, taking on the Leviathan. And people laughed at me in those circles. And now look, they just can't accept it. Why do you think, and listen to this, don't you think that if the people are saying this is what we want, we're under duress, we're in distress, we're in extremis, we need something, give us something, throw us a stone, it's not happening. Why do you think the party that is supposed to represent working Americans, everyday people, the average, John Q., why do you think the Democratic Party is so, and if they're not even listening, they're not even saying, okay, we're a big tent, you guys come on in and we'll work it out where we can. They just say, no, you can't come in here, we don't want that, as if people literally aren't asking for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anybody.
When it comes to, establishment or corporate-backed Democrats, they're very much disconnected to their voter base. And, they listen to their special interest over, working class issues. And that disconnection is the reason why.
So when did that happen? Because, there was a great while in the 60s and 70s where the Democrats staked their claim, their brand, is that we stand up for the working man.
I would just add that, from back in the, what you said, 70s?
Yeah, 60s, 70s, after the
70s.
civil rights era, they kind of switched places and the Democrats said, okay, we're the party of the people now.
I would argue they're not too different from the 60s and 70s, simply because they still support, corporate interests.
Yes.
They were capitalists back then. They're capitalists today, and at large. And so, yes, in the 60s and 70s, they were progressive in the sense that they listened to social issues from civil rights, abortion rights, women's rights. And I agree. Today, they're allowing setbacks. They're not too different from Republicans across the aisle right now.
It's very sad. Very, very sad. Bianca, I'm interested to hear, you're a millennial. I'm interested to hear what you think about this movement and the recent successes.
It is inspiring in a time where a lot of people were losing hope, including me. So it's inspiring to see people come together and fight for something different. I used to do campaign strategy work for Angie Nixon and design her logo when she was in the House. So I have a very close relationship with her and so proud of her in the way that she's campaigning. And it's so sad the narratives that people are spreading about the movement. But that goes to the question that I do want to pose to y'all. There's a lot of controversy around terms such as socialism. What does that mean to you? Because words mean things. So we need to define it because some people don't actually know what DSA means, what the S stands for. So that's the question I want to pose to y'all.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. Jason, you get this every time.
Sure. I would just add, I feel like having a in-depth or detailed explanation might take longer than what we have on this show, but I'll break it down and simplify it. That the socialism that we want to see here in the U.S. is one that supports workers across the country. It means that you don't have those shareholders or those capitalists that exploit the working class, that actually bring value to this country, and that the working place is centered around us, the worker.
Okay. All right. Let me get this sorted out here. All right, how about that? You guys go ahead. Commiserate amongst yourselves. I'm going to fix my thing over here.
So, Jason, hi, this is Maria. I have a question. Why is it that there is this false? I want to believe it's a false narrative because I think that we can all of us on this show would consider ourselves socialists. Why is there this false narrative that running around that the DSA is not embracing a Black agenda, and that it's not a party of Black working people as well? Because I think even in Tuesday's election in Michigan, Wayne County, which is where Detroit is, I can't even remember the woman's name that ran against Abdul, but she won 6 out of 10 of Black voters. Why do you think that is?
Personally, I don't have a good answer for that, to be honest. But I would say that we always strive for more diversity and inclusiveness within DSA. I think the propaganda and talking points that the establishment Dems put out there is still effective in some way. In terms of just scaring people or misinforming folks of what socialism means or what the Democratic Socialists of America stand for.
I don't understand what's happening here.
Do you think that there are special challenges in Florida when it comes to people understanding DSA and socialism because of the South American population who reject it out of turn, from what I understand?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the diaspora from, past immigration from Cuba and these other countries that were more or less persecuted by the U.S. is a large base of Florida-based voters. So that's definitely a challenge, but it's one we can overcome.
So, Jason, I'm just going to have to turn this off, guys. I'm sorry. So tell me this. Black folks are always on the cutting edge of everything that's trendy in our society. If not the progenitors of trends. Black Americans are what is the phrase? A global cultural superpower. And our culture is in every corner of the world. And that preceded Michael Jackson, the most famous entertainer who ever lived. So when something is cool, when something's on the cutting edge, when something is emerging, Black people are a part of it. I feel like the connection for me is that I understand the stakes. I make it my business to understand the stakes. I know what's going to happen if capitalism proceeds unchecked. So I'm all in. You don't have to ask me for my money. Just point me when Maurice came and he said, this is our person at the Working Families Party get after hours event in DC. I was like, okay, yeah. Say less. Oh, we've got this candidate for Philly. All right. Okay. It's time to donate. Everybody get your phones out. I'm giving the money. Right now, I haven't given yet for this year, but I definitely wanted to give. I see Richie's running as unopposed. So he's getting his seat back. He doesn't need money. So I still have to do other stuff for some of these other candidates. I don't need to be convinced. But I can tell you that the young people who get excited about some candidates, they're not in. I want them to be in because I know this is going to benefit them. They're going to benefit from Zoran's policies in New York City. They're going to benefit from the DSA candidate's policy if she's successful in November in Denver. I lived in Denver for 14 years. Diana DeGette was my congressman. If you had told me that she would be unseated by a 27-year-old, and I would have laughed. Right? And I want all these things to be possible. And so I really want young Black people to get excited about what DSA is doing. Now, I'm not saying that there's something that you guys are doing that's wrong. I just want young Black people to come in because I feel like when that linchpin, when you get it, it's going to really go. And the Democratic Party can bend over and kiss it goodbye. Okay. Now, let's go back to Dump Duke because that's where I entered. I heard that DSA was taking this on with Councilman Floyd, Vice Chair Floyd. Tell us about what happens. I thought that nobody turned back into a frog when the clock struck midnight. The people are they still have Duke. They're still getting their bills. There's a study that's being done right now to determine what the best course of action is. What are you guys going to be doing with voters in St. Pete between now and when they come back with the verdict in 9 months?
Absolutely. So right now, like you stated, the franchise agreement has expired.
Okay.
Right now, we need to hold the administration accountable to ensure they don't try to sign a new agreement with Duke Energy while we explore all of our options. The study begins this August. And I just want to state there is no need to rush into another agreement, as we have already experienced. With this agreement expired, services continue as usual, and there is no impact on the city as a whole. Pensacola, for example, operated without a renewed franchise agreement for several years. And we just want to make sure that our city doesn't, take a step back and push forward a rushed agreement due to, their interest with Duke Energy or what have you. And yes, working with Richie Floyd and his support was fundamental for us achieving our recent victory, which was approving the franchise, not the franchise, but the study for public power.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys got it done. So, at one point, Cleo was going to come in. I came to that meeting where we discussed, it was a regular DSA meeting, where we discussed the possibility of actually having folks come in and help fund door-to-door work on that. Are you guys still planning on doing that? That's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're still collecting petitions to grow our supporter base. If you're listening right now, you can go to dumpdukefl.com and sign our petition. And during this primary election, we'll be out there doing a petition drive.
Okay. And so is there a place that people can come if you don't come to their door, where can they go to get put their signature on there?
Yeah, well, they can go online to sign up, or we will be at the Supervisor of Elections office in St. Pete on the 12th and 13th.
So they can check your website and
Yes.
get more information. Reach out to you guys if they have questions, like to get involved, like to do some canvassing and some outreach themselves, collect some signatures, participate, maybe join the organization. I can't do a call to action, but you guys, these are all of the possibilities. So I think that the way that I see DSA and what they're doing in St. Pete is these guys are kind of like dream weavers. We talk a lot about these behemoth organizations, these data centers that are cropping up. They're trying to pass those fees on to us. Shockingly, I mean, this is a high season for me, so I'm about to head out of town on Monday, but I've been paying half an ear to these things, and shockingly, it sounds like there isn't a lot of will in the population, and the Republican Party, believe it or not, seems to be picking that up and saying that we're not going to allow these data centers to run roughshod over citizens and off-let these massive demands on the grid onto regular taxpayers who are already bristling under the bit of a horrible economy. This is the work. This is the way. So if people say, hey, I support you, they shake my hand, give me your vote, if you actually look at DSA, these guys are in the streets actually doing that work. And that deserves notice. So if you're talking about data centers, if you're talking about the price increases and how unreasonable your bill is, then there's only a couple ways around that, and that is to get involved and to put your signature at a minimum. Those are some ways that you can engage. Can't do a call to action though. So there you have it. So tell us again, for those of you who missed it, we're talking to Jason Scott. He is with Dump Duke, which is a program, a movement that was initiated by the Democratic Socialists of America. You guys have seen the red sign and the rose. And so what they're doing right now is they have challenged that St. Pete, there is no mandate that they have to accept Duke as their vendor for electric services. There's a lot of interest in a municipal utility. However, that's a big order. Right now, they're just trying to see what would be best for the people of St. Pete. And they've been working on that since about when? It's been about 6 or 7 months now? Maybe. No, it's been over a year.
It's been over a year. Yeah. We launched in March of 2025.
Well, there you have it. Periodically, we're going to keep coming back to this. I think it's an emerging story, and the narrative of if enough of us stand up, if we have elected officials who are going to reflect back to us our will, then we're going to start moving things forward, and we won't just be, shaking our fists at the sky forever. There's actually things that people can do to change the circumstances, and DSA is on the leading edge of that, as you can see. And every time I tell y'all first, right here on this show, I say, listen, do y'all not see what is happening over here? And people say, that's not a thing. And you heard Stephen Shell, oh, that's not a thing. Nikki Free, it's not a thing. It is absolutely a thing. How much do you think people will take? So if the middle-aged people who have gotten fat and live on Bayshore aren't going to do it, somebody's going to do it. Yeah, the kids need hope. And so thank you, Jason, for coming out. You have any last words or any message that you didn't get to say to the audience?
Sure. I'll just repeat myself a little bit here. We have tons of work within the DSA. So if you're interested in joining as a member, I definitely fully support that. And with Dump Duke as a campaign, we have a lot of work ahead of us to achieve public power in St. Pete. So please sign up at dumpdukefl.com. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming in. I'll have you back in a month or so, and we'll check in and see what's going on with you. I appreciate your work.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye,
guys.
Jason. All right, let's just be our ugly selves. Now our guests are gone. Yeah, we're just gonna talk trash. What time is it? Having a rough morning. You guys, I have a lot of stuff going on. So we're only halfway through. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this election. Winners, losers. What happened to Cori Bush? I know, Maria, you want to talk about it.
I do. I mean, it's not that it wasn't even close.
Not even a little bit.
She got 25% of the vote. It's like, it's almost as if she dropped into an alien environment and nobody knew who she was. I was really shocked by that. I thought it would have been much closer. As a matter of fact, I thought she was going to win. But there was something happening that deserves explanation.
You know, it bothered me. It bothered me by how much she lost by, when I know what type of creature Wesley Bell is. It really bothered me. And he was so smug about it. I saw him, I was working in St. Louis this winter and spring, and geez, almost to the summer. I was in there for a long time. So I was working in St. Louis, and I've known him because I work in St. Louis periodically. You guys, this guy, he's a bad guy. He was a Republican. He was a Republican judge up in Ferguson. And some people picked him to be their guy. You know, I was going to say the word that teachers say, that's not girl. To be there. Yeah, I'm not going to do it, but I want to do it so bad. And he was, you know, one of those judges that was, you know, adjudicating these cases where they were giving some people in some families 2 tickets a day. 2 tickets. Just the poor man's tax. He was all in for it. He used to come and hang around the campaign headquarters when I was the field director for the incumbent county executive, Charlie Dooley. That was another story. We never waited on the FBI to come and take my candidate away. That was the only time that ever happened. But St. Louis is an interesting place. And Wesley was one of those people. He would harass the girls, you know, in the office, and they would get upset. I won't say he harassed them, allegedly. The girls would cry because he was, you know, insistent on their giving him attention. And I had an all-female crew. It was like 10 women. And they would just be so upset when they knew he was going to come by the office. And we could never figure out why he was coming by the office. He was just an empty barrel.
I think you answered your own question there.
I did, yeah. The Adderall's not
You
working.
just had to say it out
I
loud.
took the drugs and the drugs aren't working. So...
Yes, indeed.
It'd be like that sometime. I asked for a second this morning in my appointment. So listen, Wesley Bell's a bad guy. Now, Corey is someone that I flew to D.C. when I flew to D.C. for the early protest, the early Palestinian pro-Palestine protests, right? I flew up there, and everybody was in the streets, you know, with their signs, and I made a point to bring a business casual outfit and some heels and go over and try to say hi to she and Rashida and Ilhan and Andre Carson and others who were resolute that they would not be silent, not to keep their seats, not for another campaign dollar, not for a shekel. They wouldn't be silent. And so I went around to their offices, and I did get to see Corey. And we took pictures, and there was a guy, he came to her office, he was crying, and he was telling her what had happened to his family. And she was, you know, they're always trying to go out the back door because they can't take 2 steps without someone asking them a question. And so the lady said, just a second, the aide at the front, she went back, and Corey peeked her head around the corner, you know, see if she was being ambushed. And she saw this man standing there, and he's almost shaking. And I was just sitting there because I would, you know, make sure I didn't try to, you know, get in front of him because he was clearly directly impacted. And she was so tender with him. There were no cameras. Nothing was being recorded. And the level of tenderness that she showed him, and even me, I mean, we all cried together. And I've only been in one other such circumstance with a sitting U.S. rep, where they said, hey, no cameras, this is a serious thing, and we need to just talk amongst ourselves as humans. You know, don't take any pay. This is not for the media. And she was that person. She was that girl. So, but word on the street in St. Louis, it's a lot like New Orleans. They walk around with open containers, and they drink margaritas in the street all the time.
Say that again?
They drink a lot of stuff. They drink a lot.
Oh, wow.
It's like a culture like New Orleans where everybody's just drinking. all day, outside. So I said New Orleans, but she, people in New Orleans said, in St. Louis said that she didn't really do a lot for them. They didn't feel her impact. We saw her, and this is the thing we talked about with Jasmine Crockett. People saw her on the national stage, and they said that she is getting Trump told. But then when you went back to her district, there was a level of dissatisfaction with her services. But I can't speak to that because I'm not a native. I could only speak to what I saw, and I found what I was experienced useful. But, there's still a primary job of taking care of the people in your district. And they are the final arbiters of whether that has happened or not. And they go to the polls. Think about it. This is a primary. Everybody and their mama isn't going to vote. The people who know what the record is, they're the ones that are voting. And they said, no, we don't want any more of that. And I feel bad about it, but, she's not my rep. I got my own circus. Yeah. Speaking of my rep, Kathy Castor.
What's going on there?
There could be a real challenge here, a Republican challenger. You guys, the number that I saw last night says that there's about 1.5 million more Republicans registered in the state of Florida now than there are Democrats. Now, I knew they had passed us, but that was the first time my eyes did spy a number as large as that. I remember when they were just inching past us. How did we blow up to 1.5 million?
We're losing registered Democrats every day.
Where are they going?
In Palm Beach County alone, we lose at least 2,500 a month.
And when
you ask the party officials, they're like, I don't know. I said, well, I think it's your responsibility to know. I think you should be asking people in the community why they are disenrolling in the Democratic Party, right? It speaks volumes, right? People don't just get up one day and say, oh, well, I'm no longer going to be a Democrat. I mean, I have a couple of really close friends, they're brothers. And the younger brother told me, I begged him not to leave the Democratic Party until after the primaries. But he wants to leave the party because he says the party doesn't reflect his values. And his values are much more progressive, much more socialist than the party touts, right? And if they don't pay attention, the only people they're competing with are Republicans. And there's a whole vast, not even a lane, but an entire highway to the left that they are not paying attention to.
I hear someone said to me the other day, Sister Mona, she has a radio show. We should have them on our show at some point. And it's called We Are Black Independents. And so, people are finding these different pathways. The young people are like, we don't want the capitalists to hold sway. We want them to share the wealth. We don't want to pay the poor man's tax. We don't want to constantly be saddled with red light tickets. There are all these ways for them to extract. This extraction economy is forcing people to say, hey, I'm moving to Thailand and I'm going to, just hang out all day. I don't mind the giant bugs in my house. At least I'll have a house. I don't have to live in my car. That's what the young people are saying. Old people are like the boomers that have done well, but we make it seem like that wealthy boomers is some sort of monolith for all people in that age group. You have to subtract a great number of Black folks that have worked their entire lives on low-wage jobs, and there's no retirement in sight. And slowly the top edge of Gen X is making its way into that space. And then right behind them are millennials who went and got these degrees and never found a job that made those loans make sense.
And they will retire with student loan debt.
Gen X already has. Their Gen Xers at the top have retired. They're still paying. And one of the things is disservice I'm in a little rant here. One of the disservices that the media, mainstream media, has done is making it seem like it's Gen X versus millennials. Let me tell you something. A lot of us are in the same situation as millennials who are just now reaching the edge of being sandwiched in between aging and dying parents and young children. And some Gen Xers still have kids coming out of high school. I have people that I went to high school with that had a 10-year-old when I had a 24-year-old. Those kids are coming out of high school still. They're very much keyed in to what's happening and what it costs to exist. And so I don't know why the numbers are shrinking in Florida. When someone said the other day, I live in an affluent neighborhood, houses like $400,000, and I almost laughed. There are no affluent neighborhoods. Those are working class neighborhoods in Florida. What part of
That's
Texas
right.
you live in, baby? Because $400,000 gets you a starter home, not a Mac mansion in Florida. You get a concrete block house that needs a roof for $400K. A roof and plumbing. Building 56. Ask me how I know. Okay? So if all of that's happening, and we also live in a police state, don't get me started on that. That's a whole other show unto itself, right? They're getting ready, I feel like, I know we're not supposed to do conspiracies, but I feel like they were saying stop the steal. Can you imagine the skullduggery that is about to take place? We saw the veil get ripped off that stuff in the last election. The president calling people allegedly and saying, hook me up. Bro, this is not a Wendy's. Give me an extra fry, a Frosty. This is a country of people who pay taxes to keep you're housed. You're flying on something that belonged to us. So my question is, we've got DSA in one corner. It's like, the lineup, right? DSA in one corner, independents in the other corner. Black independents are different than, I would say, a little bit different than some other independents. There's different reasons why Black people become independents. It's not because they're libertarians. It's because they're sick of, they saw their parents die penniless in the Medicaid nursing home, all while never, ever, ever neglecting to vote Dem. And nothing happened. So they're saying, hey, I'm taking my vote back. We can't be Republicans because Republicans are massive racists and out in front with it, marching through the streets screaming blood and soil. So who's going to go do that and just be like, who wants to be a coon? That's spelled K-U-N with 2 dots over the U, I think. Sorry. I had a comic relief in there. Maria, help.
But have you noticed that the Florida Democratic Party isn't even trying?
Have I noticed it?
I mean, no, seriously. Like, it's not a because you and I we have this conversation a lot, but like, for the average person out there, if you look at who they want at the top of the ticket, it is completely divorced from who their base is, who their constituency is. And I don't know how to fairly reconcile that. You asked Jason earlier today, like, when did we stop representing working families? I fundamentally believe that we stopped during the Clinton era. I think hardcore, we stopped during the Clinton era. I distinctly remember where I was when Bill Clinton signed the bill into law dismantling Glass-Steagall.
I remember that.
I was actually in a bank. And I felt inside my body, I was like, oh, that can't be good, because I remember high school history class. I remember what preceded the Great Depression. And then lo and behold, that's literally the crisis that walked Barack Obama through the front door.
I have seen in a couple of states when there is either year-round or sustained pressure on the hot spots where people are not engaging, when we just get a map, right? Because I'm a field operative. So my game is to get a map, look at where people are not engaging, down to the precinct.
Yep.
And go into those places and talk to people. Now, we can't just go in the place and talk to people. You can't just send, Sally Mae, the librarian, down there, to talk to people in East Tampa. You have to have the right canvasser for the right community. We even do that with field directors. We get granular with this thing, okay? And I feel like I put in the Analyst Institute, are some people that I've been working with since 24. And they basically, there's a huge field you guys can't see. It's like invisible. And these people are behaviorists, behavioral scientists, they're research scientists. And their whole jam is to sit around and try to figure out the path in to increasing voter engagement. Now, I'm a fan of increasing voter engagement across the entire spectrum, because if nothing else happens, one, you can't get sued for it. And I worry about that as an entrepreneur in the space. The other thing is, if everybody votes, we're going to end up with the country that we all agreed on. We're going to go in the direction that we all agree on. If only certain people are voting and other people are being disenfranchised deliberately so that they can't participate and people can do what they want, then we get what we got right now.
And that's a bipartisan agreement.
Okay. Now, I asked them they said, we need everybody to give us your ideas. Now, this is not a novel idea. It's just an idea whose time has come. Instead of spending $80 to get a voter registration card that most likely is going to be an update and not a new registrant. And then the conversion rates on those cards, I hate to talk shop, but y'all got to understand this. When people say, we got to register people to vote, they just got to know. I'm going to tell you, I have so many millions of data points. I literally have overseen millions of door knocks. Me, Donna, So I know exactly what is happening. Now, what I don't know is what's happening in Milwaukee. I'm about to find out. I know what's happening in St. Louis because I was just there. I know what happens in Houston because I spent months there. I know what happens in Denver because I live there. I know what happens in New York because I go there. I can't tell you what's happening in LA because I've never worked there. But for the most part, no matter how much information you give people, we're still just, Homo sapiens sapiens. We're very much babies. And we very much are moved by our emotions. We like something or we don't. Forget about Plato's cave, Pavlov's dogs, whatever you got in there, okay? If you learn first year psychology, people feel something and they say, I like that guy. He made me feel something. Remember, Show Me the Money? It's that simple. No new taxes. I feel a thing. That's my guy, okay? And this guy could come back and cut your head off. And your last words formed on, well, that was my guy. It must be for a reason. So we're asking these people to just slow down a little bit. Stop spending millions of dollars to do address changes on voter registration forms. I like money, okay? So if you want to pay me to go do that, I'll just go and do it because somebody's going to do it. Might as well be me. But what I would like to do while I am cultivating the next generation of Black female political operatives, I said it out loud, we can sit down in these communities, establish relationship, try to figure out with our own people. Now, this can't be Connor and them that they like to come and do these jobs because they get these jobs. They run the industry. But I need to go and say, my people, what y'all doing? What y'all doing? Y'all gonna let them have this city? You're in 60% of the population. What you doing, Jackson? What you doing? Okay? What you doing, Hattiesburg? I need to know. I need to know what's happening in Charlotte. In Charlotte, what are you doing? Jacksonville, what's going on? Go talk. I'm from Jacksonville. There's a whole dialect that we speak in Jacksonville that you don't hear in any other part of the state until you get up in the Carolinas, because it was settled through the 3 major Black neighborhoods were settled by Geechees. You don't know that unless that's your people. So let's send our own people. We saw Roy Moore. Resource communities, resource people in the communities to talk to their neighbors. That's how Obama became the president. Why have we abandoned that? It tells me this, and I'll stop. it tells me that we are getting the government that a few of us want. And they have now, when they realize, oh, all these voters are disenfranchised, even the Democrats. And run this, play it again. Tell somebody, run and tell this. If you didn't want it, you would run field and you would talk to voters.
That's right.
They don't want it, and they're not talking to voters because they like it like this, because they can run a Jolly, because they can run a Vindman, they can ignore Angie, the Hispanic caucus can stop her from getting on the phone, not let her back on, and be like, whoopsie. We can do this all day long.
That was wild and very disrespectful, mind you. It's so sad to see when people are intentionally causing people to fail. And for what? Just run your race. Run your race. But the fact that they have intentionally targeted Angie, and I've seen it.
Are we going to keep
It's
it real?
wild.
Are we going to keep it real, though? Once, let's say there's an upset next week, and it would have to be an upset because the money and everything else is stacked, right? So right now, what's going to happen right now is Vindman has a war chest out of this world. He's not spending it on field, okay? And what's going to happen is they're going to blast places like Jacksonville with an aging population. The average age up there is 37, 38, inching closer and closer to the 40s because the younger people want to live in places with beaches, real ones. So what they're going to do is they're going to blast the TV. They're going to talk to evangelical Christians in the Latin communities. They're going to go after the same people that Republicans go after. Because the talking point is that in order to win, Steve Shell said this the other day, in order to win in Florida, you must have someone who can win statewide seats. It's going to have to be someone that Republicans are be willing to vote for. So you're going to move the whole state to the left, to the right.
I disagree. Of with
course.
his analysis.
Of course.
Because I'm in, and Bianca, you could say this too, I'm in the party, right? And I see where they don't invest in communities. I see the dysfunction because my congressional district extends through 3 separate counties. And those counties, they don't know how to use data. They don't know how to organize. The inside of the party doesn't look anything like the outside of the party, if you will. They don't look like our neighborhoods. There's no representation for our neighborhoods, our communities inside the party. So there's no way you are going to win statewide if you do not have the infrastructure. When I was listening to you, Donna, what I heard is that you were going to take the assignment, but you were going to expand on it. What I heard was, yes, you want me to get these signatures, but I want to find out. I want to go deeper, and I want to understand this. And that understanding is fundamental to building that infrastructure that is permanent, that is sustainable, that is going to make you win statewide, right? Just assuming that you have to be white and right is not going to win statewide elections. We saw it with Charlie Crist. We saw it with Bill Nelson. We saw it. We're going to see it again. I just hate to tell you.
Don't forget the undervoting of Gillum.
Correct.
And when you cannot put that on, Gillum was a great candidate. You cannot take anything that's happened since his candidacy because nobody had that information when he was running. All they saw was a charismatic, tall, handsome black guy who was very smart and who was a political prodigy. That's all they knew. That was all the information they had, and they still undervote him. Democrats did
They
that.
voted every other Democrat on the ballot but Andrew Gillum.
Now,
Tell me why.
How you vote for the Crypt Keeper, but you couldn't vote for a man who's actually alive? Can't stand it. Is that any way for a 200-year-old man to talk about the future of our country? So that's what we got going. And I am, frankly, I'm over it. But here's the thing, they picked the wrong one to start, giving large contracts to, because, one thing I know about this country is that if you have money, you de facto have influence. And once you have influence, you can start twisting things, bending things to your will. And so, they won't, next year by 28, when I say we should do year-round voter registration, sustained voter registration in the communities that we wish to get to. We should stop parachuting into these communities. They're sick of us. We're not giving anything. People say, well, we can't give people anything. I'm not talking about giving people gifts to register. What I'm talking about is you're in my community. There's a thing that happens at the community center. It could be night basketball. There's a man in there, and all the kids talk to him. He's like a father figure. So for some boys. And he says, y'all gonna make sure y'all register to vote, okay? And instead of paying somebody, from Little Canada in Minnesota, to Minnesota, a guy named Connor Olson come out and go into the boys club and say, we got to get everybody voted. Why not let Mr. John, who sells T-shirts on Saturdays, why not let him get all those boys registered to vote? Why don't we resource Mr. John to do more? Because he's already doing everything with nothing. So they're not really in community and building community. And then after some time, some of these organizations will become, I would say, platforms to get grants so they can pay salaries, so they can get more grants and pay more salaries. And they do just enough. I worked at a nonprofit in New York City, in Brooklyn. I won't say the name, but I was a job developer after Hurricane Sandy. And my job was to get folks who had lost their jobs during the storm, because a lot of stuff got shut down, help them get back to work. And I was really good at it, because of course I was. And because I actually care about people. And I had everybody coming. I'd see people on the bus stop. You know what? You're looking for a job? You should come on down to blah, blah, blah. Here's my card. This is where we are. It was a temporary job. It was a FEMA grant. And the lady called me upstairs. What was her name? I can't remember. She called me upstairs and she said, we think you're doing a very good job, but this is a temporary contract and we don't want to put together anything that's too unwieldy for the people who will be here when you're gone. So basically, act at the job, but don't act like this is a real thing. They offered us $180,000. Of course, we took it. We hired you. We pay you $20,000 or $30,000. And we get to put that to our bottom line. So next year, we're all guaranteed our raises. And it becomes a game. And then, don't forget the award ceremonies where we give them awards for being the people who pour out themselves to the community, just to move around grant money that we got from corporate profits. I hate to be so moribund.
Ooh, child. Well, when you follow the money and get down to the receipts, that's why I'm like, there's a profit and a problem, and I don't know how voting or any of that is going to change it. And that's just the thought that I have in my view, because when you look at the donors, it's these corporations that are doing that. Sure, everyday people are voting, and I see that. I did a whole report on Byron Donalds, which I hope people pay attention to, that race in particular, because there are people that don't want a black man to run the state. And there's infighting that's happening within the Republican Party. Sure. So much so that it is fracturing them very, very badly. So people need to keep their eyes on the ground to the conversations that are happening, because look at where the money is going.
Well, in a den of there's no honor amongst thieves, right? And you can see the way that the primary opponent talks about Byron Donaldson. You can tell that it's eating them alive, right? And he got the Trump endorsement, and there's some guy somewhere named William who is like, that was supposed to be me, because that's always a thing. And I have white friends that don't even believe it. They think we just be saying stuff all the time. We ain't got nothing else to do except sit around and talk about how racist everybody is and make up stuff. And they just don't understand how absolutely racist this country is. That's why an 18-year-old black girl has the allostatic stress of a 30-year-old woman. And we die 5 years younger. We're breathing the same air, eating the same foods. It's the stress. We got 6 seconds.
As someone who has a pacemaker, I'm telling y'all, protect your peace.
Hey, say it again.